2 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering number of workers currently missing from Ukraine's economy. It's a massive, massive deficit, and it's quite literally crippling the nation's business sector right now. From totally empty construction sites to unpaved roads, this isn't just some future projection. It's a harsh reality playing out literally as we speak across the country. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're objectively analyzing current legislation and economic data to really unpack this sudden, historically significant demographic shift. For years, you probably know Ukraine is a country that exported its labor force to the rest of Europe. But today, driven by the ongoing war and some really deep demographic changes, we are looking at the exact opposite scenario. Ukraine is actively preparing to import foreign workers on a massive scale. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's how we're going to break it all down. 1. The shortage of 2 million workers. 2. The deep demographic crisis. 3. Opening borders for migrants. 4. The economics of hiring, specifically that 150K number. And 5. The risk of an EU transit hub. Let's get right into it. Part 1. Shortage of 2 million workers. The immediate impact on the economy. So look at these numbers. According to the State Employment Service, a staggering 62% of all job vacancies currently remain completely unfilled. On top of that, 75% of companies are reporting an acute staff shortage. This is absolutely devastating in sectors that require physical or technical labor. We're talking about things like construction, logistics, agriculture, and municipal services. Businesses literally cannot expand, they can't launch new projects or compete internationally when they just don't have the hands to do the actual work. And this isn't just some theoretical issue hidden away in dry economic reports. Local authorities are seeing the impact right there on the ground. For instance, the mayor of Cherkasy recently reported that foreign migrants are literally being brought in on work visas just to pave the local roads. Over in Ivano-Frankivsk, the mayor noted that Indian migrants are now working on local construction sites. Because of widespread mobilization and massive outward emigration, companies are just doing whatever they can with the resources they have left, simply to keep basic infrastructure functioning. Section 2. Deep demographic crisis. The numbers behind the shrinking workforce. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast over just a few short years. It's actually incredible. Back in 2021, right before the full-scale invasion, the State Employment Service saw about 1.2 million job seekers, and that was roughly split evenly between men and women. But look at the numbers for 2025. That pool of job seekers has been slashed in half to just 600,000, and crucially, 80% of those job seekers are now women. This dramatic gender shift mathematically explains the massive gaps we're seeing in heavy industry, construction, and technical fields that, frankly, traditionally relied heavily on a male workforce. Leading Ukrainian demographer Ella Libanova states the reality pretty plainly here. She says, "We will attract migrants. We simply have no other choice." When you factor in an aging population, historically low birth rates, and millions of citizens who have fled the war, well, the math is just unforgiving. The sheer scale of the post-war rebuilding that's going to be required will demand millions of working hands, making foreign labor an absolute mathematical necessity. Moving on to Part 3. Opening borders for migrants. Easing restrictions for risk countries. Because Ukraine really can't currently compete with the salaries and the social guarantees of the European Union, it's looking toward non-traditional regions that have massive labor surpluses. We're talking about targeted labor markets like India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, the Philippines, and various African nations. The whole idea is to bring in workers from these specific regions to fill those critical everyday gaps in agriculture, construction, and logistics. To make this happen, the Parliament is actually reviewing new legislation right now to streamline the whole hiring process. It works like this. Step 1. Employers post vacancies available to foreigners on a state e-portal. Step 2. Foreigners can apply for a unified electronic permit. Step 3. A positive decision immediately triggers visa processing and entry. And finally, Step 4. Upon arrival, the worker submits biometric data for a residence permit. But what is absolutely crucial here is that the government is actively working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Security Service to ease restrictions on citizens from 70 countries. These are countries that were previously heavily restricted and officially listed as migratory risks. Section 4. The economics of hiring. 150K. The true cost of importing labor. So the crucial point for businesses is this very specific number, 150,000 hryvnia. That is the estimated upfront cost an employer has to pay just to bring a single foreign worker into the country. This covers the costs of legalization, document processing, mandatory medical insurance, and transportation. It's a really steep initial investment for a business, which obviously begs the question, is it actually worth it? The economic reality here actually presents a pretty massive global irony. While countries like the United States are locked in these fierce, ongoing debates about building border walls to keep migrant labor out, Ukraine is doing the exact opposite. They're actively spending heavy upfront capital to pull that exact same labor force in. And despite that 150,000 hryvnia upfront cost, agricultural experts argue that migrant workers are highly cost-effective over time. Why? Well, pure productivity. A worker arriving from Nepal or the Philippines has one singular goal, and that's to earn money. They don't have local households to manage, families to rush home to at 5 p.m., or other local social distractions. Employers are reporting that they're highly motivated to work longer hours and more days. So ultimately, that pure focus on earning makes their higher initial cost balance out perfectly against local workers. Part 5. Risk of an EU transit hub, security concerns, and legal loopholes. Kirilo Budanov, the head of the main directorate of intelligence, perfectly captured the primary fear at a recent government meeting. He stated, "They come here, get a residence permit, and the next day say, goodbye." And that right there is the massive concern. It's that workers from these targeted countries will simply use Ukraine's eased legislation as a stepping stone to legally enter Europe. Once they have their documents, the fear is they'll just illegally cross the border into the wealthier European Union. And this perfectly transitions into the legal headache for businesses. The Employers Confederation of Ukraine has raised a massive red flag regarding this exact transit hub risk. Think about it. If an employer pays 150,000 hryvnia to legally bring a worker into the country, and then that worker subsequently vanishes to Poland or Germany, who is legally responsible? Right now, there are no robust mechanisms in place to control a migrant's whereabouts once they arrive, so businesses are demanding legal safeguards so they aren't penalized when migrants inevitably disappear toward the EU. So, what does this all mean? We've looked at the massive vacancies, the deep demographic shifts, the new laws, the costs, and of course the risks. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question. How will Ukraine balance the urgent existential need to rebuild its economy with these unprecedented long-term demographic and security risks? It is a delicate tightrope walk of importing the labor necessary for basic survival without losing control of the borders. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this structured look at the data helped you understand the massive workforce changes unfolding right now.